Needs no introduction, lead up to Tucson.
If Dante don't get it, if Dante don't get it, if Dante don't get it, I said if Dante don't get it, said if Dante don't get it, said if Dante don't get it, I said if Dante don't get it. Everybody here, you're part of something that has happened in the past here, a very long time ago. It hasn't happened enough here. And what you're a part of is something that should be continuing on going forward. You should be continuing this energy going forward. And I'll tell you the reason why real quick. We were posting, information about where the military was last night and the night before on a news site that we have. And somebody said, well, hey, why are you doing that? You're scaring people. You're just scaring people. And then I left it alone. And then they DM'd the next day and they said, I'm sorry. I just heard about the mass arrests. We live in two different worlds right now. We live in one that is completely ignorant to what's going on. And we live in one that is taking rubber bullets to the face. There is a large disparity there. We live in you live in two different worlds. You have two different campuses. And W.B. Du Bois talks about this in Double Consciousness. And if you saw the video of what happened to Dante Wright, I don't encourage you to watch it. But there's a moment at the end where the black police officer looks at her. And you see the look on his face. Because one, he's looking at her as a human. And then he's looking at her as a black man. And he can't believe what just happened. But I believe a third consciousness was set in him as well. Where he thought that becoming a cop was going to change things. He grew up believing that he was going to make a difference. When you walk around the campus and we see people that are unhoused, it's not in a vacuum. It's a long story to how that happens. It's a long story to a society creating unhoused folks, creating situations of unhoused folks. It's a long story that black man took to become an officer and think that he was going to make a change. And yet here he is being trained by a white female officer, and she's killing a young black man. Here he is being trained by a white woman that has killed a young black man. And we live in two different worlds. One, where we're out here showing up for that. And two, where you saw that young man on Frat Row do a profane gesture with his hand. Your racism is inexcusable and it needs to be changed. It needs to be transformed. And it needs to be held accountable. Kim Potter did not happen in a vacuum. Kim Potter had her hand in the murder of Kobe Dimmock Heisler. All these cops have a history of killing people. It didn't just happen over, oh, I made a mistake. Kim Potter's husband teaches taser gun usage. So you can't tell me that she didn't know what she was doing. You can't make that excuse. She didn't know the difference between the weight. You can't tell me that woman didn't know her left from her right. You can't tell me that young white man doesn't know better. There is a difference between misinformed ignorance and optional ignorance. Misinformed, I can work with. We can educate misinformed. We can sit down and have a conversation. Optional ignorance, optional racism, optional misogyny, like that young man did on Frat Row, is something that needs to be held accountable. He needs to be taken to task. He needs somebody to speak to him. One of his white folks needs to grab him by his collar and say, what the hell are you doing? And I say this to white folks, you better go get your cousin. Like, go get him. Really. Go get him on the DM. Go get him on the page. If you gotta read them for filth, if you gotta air them out like in public, then let them know. Let them know. That's how we educate folks. They gotta learn right from wrong, and if they continue to do it, okay, then peace be with you. But don't say that you're gonna be out here for black lives when you're making profane gestures like that. We live in two different states. We live in two different states. You would think that Minnesota, that has voted Democratic since 1976, that was the only democratic state in 1984 would have liberal values. Yet, we are a state that ain't got the death penalty, but is A-O-fucking-K with public executing people of color in the streets, which needs to stop now. Raise your hand if you're from Wisconsin. I'm not trying to call you out. I'm not trying to call you out, I swear. If you've been to Milwaukee, you know that Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the country. But the great thing about Milwaukee is everybody will sit down and break bread. I'll talk to you about it. You want to talk to me about it? I'll talk to you about it right now. It's really inconvenient, but I'll talk to you about it. Here in Minnesota, it may be convenient. It may be the right time. You may have the right moment. You may have the right people around you, and you still don't talk about it. White spaces, still silence, speak about racial disparity. We have some of the highest racial disparity in education, law enforcement, and employability. And we're not going to get better until we talk about it and start working from there. That young man on front row ain't gonna get better until somebody grabs him by his sleeve and says, what the hell are you doing? We're not gonna get better until we pull ourselves aside and say, what the hell is going on here? This is not right. The killers of George Floyd, I'll go back a little bit. 2013. In 2013, there was a young black man by the name of Terrence Franklin who was killed in a basement in Uptown, Minneapolis. And some people showed up. Some of us came out. We're pissed off. The cops ran over 2 people and they killed a young man in a basement execution style. The ballistics say he was shot in the back of the head. But we weren't here. And that's okay. But I'll tell you why. For George Floyd, when you saw it, you showed up. For the people that saw it and didn't show up, you got to bring them out. You have to bring them out. You have to make them show up. Terrence Franklin's killers were not brought to justice because we didn't show up. Do not let anybody tell you that protesting don't work. The only reason Kim Potter was charged is because we showed the fuck up. Showing up works. Taking action works. And the way that you're going to change this campus is by taking action day after day after day. It is an active verb. It is to continue to show up. It is to continue to go get your people, go get your city, go get your community, and start paving the life that you want to live after you graduate from here. I kid you not, take action every day of your life. You will see a change around you. This city, this metro area, has been turned into a sundown town. They swooped up a black woman at 7 p.m. 2 nights ago, threw her in a van, took her off to jail. This is where sundown town started. If you don't know what a sundown town is, it's a town that's an all-white community that uses laws to get black folks and folks of color out of town when the sun goes down. And it's happening again. You go to Brooklyn Center, and when the sun goes down, rubber bullets, concussion grenades, military everywhere. Your state has been turned into a police state. Now, what are you going to do about it? Your state's been turned into a police state. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? When black lives are under attack, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? All power to the people. Thank you.